If you're looking for a show that has formal interviews with few things you can relate to, then this show isn't for you. This is the On the Air podcast starring you, the OTAP Show. What does OTAP stand for? Well, we kind of just told you. These are informal interviews with people from all walks of life, talking about experiences you can relate to. Share in all of the laughs with real stories from real people. Find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Android users can listen on the free Podcast Republic app. Now, get ready for this week's episode. Here's the OTAP Show with your host, Corey.
Here we go. AK-47, the very best there is. When you absolutely, positively got to kill every motherfucker in the room, except no substitutes. Those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers, and you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Now, if any of you sons of bitches got anything else to say, now's the fucking time!
Man under my command owes me 100 Nazi scalps. And I want my scalps.
I want you to go in that bag and find my wallet. Which one is it? The one that says bad motherfucker.
Welcome to a different episode of the OTAP Show. This episode is going to be, well, we really hadn't quite given it a name yet, and that was Greg's. He was supposed to give it a name, but we'll come up with something in a little bit. But basically, we are. I have two other guests with me, and we all have a fondness for the director, the genius that is Quentin Tarantino. So we're gonna do like a little mini series every week or every other week, detailing movies that we've chosen for this, and we're gonna give our critiques, and we're gonna have a little bit of fun with it. So right now on the line, she's going to have her own episode. She's going to have her interview. It's coming. So look out for that. But we got Patty on the line. When I say Patty in my head, for some reason, I always want to say Cam, and I have no idea why I want to say Cam, but, Patty, we got Patty on the line. What's happening?
Hi. You want to call me Cam because everyone in Colorado calls me Cam, but people from, I guess, Black Twitter or Icy Twitter know me as Patty. Can
I call you Cam? Because that's going to make my life so much easier.
You can.
Yes!
You can call me Cam.
All right, cool. So Cam, tell us why you like Quentin Tarantino and why you were so excited to do this like we both were.
Oh, wow. Let's see. Like a quick synopsis. He is the only director in which I've watched his movies as many times as I have, and seen something new each and every time. And as he adds to the universe and ties each into the universe, it feels like I'm rewatching them for the first time. Outside of the obvious, the Tarantino is, I think, brilliant. Just the replayability alone and the ability to find nuggets of information afterwards, as well as having Samuel Jackson, who's one of my favorite actors ever.
All right, so also on the line, you guys listen to his episode 10 of the OTAP Show. I affectionately call him Uncle Greg because I know he hates it, but you got Greg at New Age Ike Turner on the line. What's really good, brother?
Man, I can't call it, man. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was your idea, you know what I mean? So I'm excited to have an opportunity to host it. But you tell us, why do you like Quentin Tarantino so much?
Like Cam was saying, besides the obvious he's just pretty much one of the best screenwriters I've ever witnessed in movies. I think his non-linear story, because a lot of people try to do the non-linear thing, and he's extremely good at it. And the fact that he never went to college, never graduated college, it was just kind of one of those things that he grew into. And to say that he's probably one of the top 10 that we've seen in our lifetime, is extremely impressive.
Very much so. Very much so. And we have a list of questions that we're going to go down. The movies that we're going to talk about is Reservoir Dogs and Inglorious Basterds. But before we get into those, I want to touch on his non-linear storytelling, because I love that. You kind of get that. He gives like almost like this real exquisite graphic novel feel to his movies, because graphic novels have a tendency to do non-linear storytelling. So if you're someone that's brand new to Quentin Tarantino and his works, and you're watching something, a lot of times you're trying to figure out, okay, how does this tie in? And as you get towards the end, you start understanding how all of these pieces fit together. And then you start, for me personally, I think, okay, if I would have watched this in order, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much.
The first Tarantino movie I saw was Pulp Fiction. And I remember as a kid, I wasn't allowed to watch it, so I kept catching it in different snippets of it. And at the time, it seemed disjointed, and it wasn't until later I realized it was supposed to be that way. But specifically with Pulp Fiction, because that was the first I had experience with, what I liked about it was literally multiple movies. And so it felt to me like it was a microcosm of the Tarantino grander universe. So you have the 8 movies that exist on different timelines or different, situations. But in Pulp, it was the same exact thing he does over the 8 movies, but he did it in one. And so I totally dug the fact that this was the intro to Tarantino, and it was a kind of like a dummy's guide to Tarantino.
That's, I never thought about it like that. That's absolutely true. And I'm trying to think of what was my first Quentin Tarantino movie that I saw. It might have been Jackie Brown, because I didn't see Pulp Fiction until I saw Pulp Fiction for the first time maybe 4 years ago. Don't all play on me at once.
Doing yourself a good service.
No, it was just, you know what, and it was I don't know why. There's a lot of like dope movies I just hadn't seen, and there was no reason for it. So when I realized, I was like, I just fuck it. Let me just rent it and watch it. And I fell in love with that part.
I was I'm kind of more like Cam to a point too. With Pulp Fiction was the first movie I saw of his. I had went back to kind of understand, because I didn't understand it in the beginning. I think it was for us. I think kind of being how old we are. I think we might have been Pulp Fiction came out, I think 97. Give or take so.
94, 97 was Jackie Brown.
94. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so it's like I'm 13 years old and I'm not really understanding. I'm like, okay, it goes from one thing where you have a male scene. You have a point where, and it's always stars. You got Bruce Willis and Vin Rames, and you still don't really understand it at being that young. So I went back to kind of catch Reservoir Dogs to see exactly how it was, and actually Reservoir Dogs changed how I look at movies completely, or any movie. So.
Okay. So you know what? Let's start with that then. So we'll get into our discussion with Reservoir Dogs. For you, Greg, what was your favorite character? And how does your favorite character in the movie relate to you? Or does your favorite character relate to you?
Well, Mr. Bond, clearly, Michael Madsen, that plays Mr. Bond in the movie. Now, I love villains. I've always been a point where I've always wanted to see the villain win. Mostly when directors do movies, they kind of screen movies first to see how people care about the ending. And if the good guy wins, they kind of screen it as being okay. If the bad guy wins, then people don't enjoy it as much. So for him, he was kind of he wasn't the main antagonist in the movie, but he was still just a scene stealer. And, that was something I was just like, Jesus, this is... And it was so simple. Like, his dialogue, it wasn't a lot. He sat up on when he was talking to Harvey Keitel, Mr. White. So he's saying to him, like, oh, if they didn't do what I tell them not to do, then they'll still be alive. So, you know, it was just that simple, like what can tick him off. It didn't have to be this big thing. So, I don't know. I think the love for villain for him is why I enjoyed that character the most.
That's because you view yourself as the villain?
Yes. All the time.
Okay, Cam. Same question. Favorite character, and do they relate
favorite
to you?
Favorite character. This is super weird, but my favorite character is actually Quentin Tarantino's cameo in the movie. Yeah, it's super weird for me, but I did on this
Mr. Brown?
movie.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, honestly. Yes.
Okay, why is that?
Not because I'm brown, because I'm brown, but no, because for me it was neat to me how you were introduced to Mr. Brown as an integral character in the story, at least from the setup. So you have this crew of people and, you know, whatever's going on at the beginning of the intro. You don't see him again, except for at the end when they explain the story. Mm-hmm. Even with his off-screen appearance throughout the whole movie, he's there. And he didn't become my favorite character until after I got into Tarantino movies more. But just the idea that he's somebody who's an active character, like he almost has a starring role off stage. And that's kind of neat to me how Tarantino does that.
That's dope. That is right. And what I like about it is he'll act in his movies, but he doesn't give himself super huge major roles most of the time. They are very functional characters that in many cases just help the story move. But yeah, you're right. Like he had a very strong off-screen presence, and I can't think of another time when that was done like that.
No, I agree. He completely set the table for dialogue, like completely for right there, Reservoir Dogs. Like the first scene, he just completely set the tone of how the movie was going to go completely.
So I'm gonna go with my favorite, and anytime I see this dude in movies, I gravitate towards him, and I don't care how many movies he's in, he's always gonna be the wolf to me. So I like Mr. White. I enjoy Mr. White, and the thing is because I think it's because Mr. White he's a smart ass, and he's a little bit of an asshole, but he be knowing what he's talking about. and he has, like, you can tell, like, when he steps in the room and whether it's any movie, like, the other characters are, like, giving him that respect. I really dig that. I'll start with you, Cam. What was your favorite dialogue exchange in the movies between what two characters?
My favorite dialogue exchange. I get these colors confused all the time. I'm sorry. I did not write down notes.
I'll tell you the color.
Between the cop and the undercover cop.
Wait a minute. Shit. Hold on. Let me think. Okay, so we know Tim Roth was the undercover cop.
Right,
that's Mr. Orange.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's
Tim Roth.
Right.
Oh,
right,
you're talking about the dude.
Right,
you talking about dude in the chair. Dude in the chair that Mr. Bond.
Those two are dialogue.
Okay, cool. Why is that?
So let me tell you. So that sequence, watching it for the first time and not knowing that he's undercover, because I guess in hindsight you want to say, oh, of course you're going to pick that person. But back in that day, it was kind of unheard of for that turn like that. But when he said, I'm an undercover cop, and the other gentleman said, I know, it almost resonated with you, like, you guys have been deceiving me this whole time, like, both of you guys were in on this. And literally one of my favorite lines in the movie was when he turned in and he says, how do I look? And then Tim Roth goes, I'm bleeding to death. Like, I don't care about your external ear. I'm bleeding to death right now. Like, you're talking about aesthetics. I'm dying. I don't care.
So, refresh me. Why didn't Mr. Orange, Tim Roth, he shot him, right? Didn't he shoot the cop?
No,
he got shot by
Chris Penn actually shot him. So that would be nice guy Eddie.
Oh,
because they had the dialogue going back and forth. He was saying that it's no reason to torture him because if you torture a man long enough, he'll tell you who burn the Chicago. You know who created the Chicago fire, but it doesn't necessarily mean
that's
it's
right.
true.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Gotcha. What was your favorite dialogue?
I would have to say initially, Mr. Pink and Mr. White, so Harvey Keitel and Steve Buscemi, the conversation that they had in the bathroom. So Mr. Orange is, he's bleeding to death, you know, and Harvey Keitel had this moment where it didn't matter about names, the robbery, anything. And he was willing to give his name up and give everything up and go to jail and do a lot of different things just to get Mr. Orange to the hospital. And the funniest thing about that is he's the reason why he can't go to the hospital. That as really as he wanted to be, and I would think that for me, that scene is because like once you go through it and once you cycle through the movie, it's like. All he wanted, like he really believed that he wasn't an undercover cop. He really believed that this guy couldn't possibly do this to him, or do this to the group, or do it to Joe. So it's like that one part where it's kind of like, well, you made this an issue. Like you made this an issue. Like honestly, if he didn't tell him his name, they could have dropped him off, and the movie would have been done in 10 minutes. It's really that simple.
Right.
That's a good point. But yeah, like I don't even think about that. It's like the guy who's most sympathetic to him, you're the reason why we can't drop him off somewhere.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed, and in the initial bathroom conversation, when they were kind of talking about, you know, who they shot, and police officers involved, throughout the entire movie, they did a great job. I wouldn't say great, but they did a job of they took away cops' humanity. And for better or for worse, they really made them kind of like separate entities. They really didn't want you to see them, at least in my opinion. As humans, they kind of came off as like blustering, blundering police officers and kind of goofy, the villain in a sense. And so you didn't feel any attachment. And you didn't even feel attachment to the officer who was held hostage. But then it comes that moment where you find out that it's Mr. Orange, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an officer, and you can feel the moment in his head. Like, when you see him, like, I have to kill you now, it's the same feeling that the audience has, which I think is neat, because we didn't give any officer any humanity until that moment.
Yep.
That's true.
That's absolutely right. And it was, to me, at that moment, I love those moments where I'm forced to make a decision. When directors put you in those situations where, you know, they'll build the character up to be one way. Like, for instance, not to change the subject that much, but like I watch Game of Thrones a lot, and so I'm a real big believer in Daenerys Targaryen. Most of that is because I watched her come from nothing to having you literally watch her come from nothing to having an army and ships. But recently I've come to the idea of, what if she's the actual villain? What if she turns out to be the villain? Because if you think about it, all she's doing is conquering people. Regardless of the reason, if you take out everything that she's done, all she's doing is conquering people. If I'm forced to make that decision, I'm going to love that. Same thing with Mr. Orange, right? So nobody knew he was the undercover cop, and like you said, you know, you were forced to view, you know, police officers in a movie that, you know, a certain way. And so now I'm at this point where it's like, okay, he's an undercover cop, but does Mr. White, does he kill him? Should he kill him? Type of thing. So that he does.
Yeah, the question, like, should he kill him?
Those are the things I was going through in my head. Should he kill him now? Like now, should he? Like I'm looking at it from. I was trying to put myself in Mr. White's head, the Wolf's head, Harvey Keitel. I was trying to put myself in his head, because now this is a dude that you believed in, that you vouched for, you know, you stood up for. you pretty much just almost damn near made a fool of yourself for, because for whatever reason, you know, you had a soft spot for this guy. And maybe that was because you saw him take a bullet or whatnot, you know. But at the same time, do I kill you for these same reasons? Like the same things that make you laugh, make you cry. Do I kill you now because, you know, you actually are this person that everybody was saying that you are, and now I feel silly, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of emotions just in that one scene that I went through.
No, I agree. Even the first time I saw it, like I say, it changed the way I looked at a lot of movies from a climax standpoint. And, you know, you got to look like this, like with Mr. White. You know, he shot and killed somebody he's known for years over somebody he's known for weeks, give or take. You know, that's a lot to take in. I don't know that I couldn't have, you know, so for me, it was kind of like, oh, why don't you kill him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why don't you kill him? I don't see another alternative to it.
Yep. What would
you know, going off of what Greg said, when you don't see another alternative, it seems like it got to both of them were at the limits of their code. Like, there's a code amongst thieves. Right. And then you had the officer. And so the officer had no choice but to hold to his code, right? And that's to keep his, you know, his personality or his position secret. And then Mr. White had no choice but to hold his honor code. And which one supersedes the other? And that's what it came down into in the end. Like, both of them were morally, technically, if you look at it, morally correct. So who is more morally correct? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I like situations like that where I kind of put myself and try to think what I would have done. So Cam, I'm gonna ask you, what would you have done in that situation?
What would I have done? There's no way I would have been in that situation. To be honest with you, there's no way. It's just not going to happen. Because I don't. Here's the thing with me personally: if you're looking at two moral codes and you're looking at whatever the officer has, if you look, okay, we'll say universal morality for the officer, right? We'll just say that. And then for Mr. White, and that's the honor amongst thieves, I personally don't believe there is honor amongst thieves. So I'm not sure if I could put myself in a situation as Mr. White. I definitely could see myself as Mr. Orange, more likely than not.
Gotcha. What about you, Greg? What would you have done if that had been you, if you had been Mr. White?
No, I would have killed him. If I was Mr. White, I would have killed him. You know, it's really that simple. You know, like I said, hypothetically speaking, you know, it's hard. Like, you got to really look at this. Like, Joe and Mr. White have a conversation coming out of. I think Mr. White is coming out of. I'm not sure. When he meets him in his office, they have a conversation, and it looks real. They look so familiar, like he can almost be family or a father figure or something like that for him.
Right.
He asked him about his old wife or girlfriend, having maybe I think her name was Alabama, I believe, but. Yeah, so that it seems that it has a very close knit for what they had to do, regardless if they were thieves or not. And I get that. So, Cam, I completely understand. No honesty amongst things. I get that. Like, I completely understand that. But if I'm Mr. White at that point, you make me kill somebody that I've known for years, I gotta kill you. And that's just out. It's just violent. Yeah, it's just violent.
So here's my thing about the movie. Of the Tarantino movies, Reservoir Dogs is probably my least favorite. And one of the reasons for that is because I know that's wild, right? Like I enjoy watching it, but it's my least favorite because it is categorized as a heist movie, but you never really see the heist. Like, what? I'm
so literal.
That's actually my third. That's actually my third point. But we'll get there.
No, like seriously, like I just when I think of heist movies, I think one, you know, at a bare minimum, at the very least, I need to know what you stole or are going to steal, or at least have seen you stole something. So, like, I looked up sometime last year, I looked up like the best heist movies of all time, right? So you have like your Ocean's 11s, you have your Heat, you know what I mean? You have there was a couple movies with Pierce Brosnan, and it had Reservoir Dogs near the top, and I was like, Reservoir Dogs was a heist movie.
Yeah, and I think for me, I know that's kind of segueing into our next series of questions. For me, I think the best scene in the movie is the scene that wasn't, and what wasn't is the heist. You can have, like, you got to look like the movie Dog Day Afternoon, and Inside Man, and Heat, like as you were referring, like they show the heist. So that's a big part of the film. The funniest thing about this is we are so engaged as to know that they had a heist that you never see it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know another director that can get away with that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know somebody else that can get away with that.
Right. They showed everything but the heist. You saw people get shot at. You saw a motherfucker running. You know what I mean? The heist was... The heist itself was just imagery. You know, like, seriously, am I tripping? What did they steal? Do anybody know?
Diamonds.
It was diamonds.
Okay.
I mean, I saw running, and that's it.
Did they say in the movie it was diamonds, or we just assuming it was diamonds? Because that's what they steal.
No, they actually with Joe and when Joe and I believe Mr. Blonde had a conversation right before Nice Guy Eddie came in, and he was talking about getting on the job. That was one of the things. I think it was either him or Mr. White. I believe that they went in and he told him it was a diamond store. So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
So they definitely sold that. And then when Steve Buscemi came in, he said, "I got a bag of diamonds." So.
All right.
When Greg and I were talking about this in the TL, Brandon, mentioned that he thinks that Quentin Tarantino kind of has superfluous use of the word. And to be honest, I defended Tarantino against that criticism. However, there was a moment in Reservoir Dogs, watching it after hearing that criticism, where I wasn't sure where the conversation about Negroes and their girlfriends was going.
Wait a minute. So what was your criticism again? Because you kind of cut out. What was the criticism?
Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't my criticism. It was on the TL that Quentin Tarantino kind of just uses the N-word for the sake of using the N-word.
I told you this was going to come up, Greg. Let me tell y'all something real quick about Greg. I had to fight Greg. I had to damn near fight Greg to get Greg to save the conversation for the show. Greg called me the other night and we was having a general conversation and he was super excited. Greg was like, yeah, man. And so what do you think about such a... I was like, Greg, save it for the show. I know, man, but what you think? Dude! Okay, all right. So I'm glad you brought this up because we got a lot of questions. Go ahead, Cam.
No, so that was pretty much it, because previous to hearing that criticism, well, I'll put it this way, even after hearing it, I've always defended Quentin Tarantino's use of it, because I felt like even behind closed doors, this is what people say. Like, this is how they talk. And living in Colorado Springs, I really feel like I get a window view of what others say about people of color when people of color aren't around. And so I've always defended it because I felt like Quentin Tarantino was having, side conversations and people would say N-word because that's what people do. But I did have an issue with Reservoir Dogs, and I didn't have this before watching it again with having that criticism in my head. But, that conversation about black men and their girlfriends seemed so utterly random after thinking about it, after hearing that kind of critique. I feel like there's some validity there.
For me, I actually agree. I defended Quentin Tarantino because actually the pieces that he used also. So whether it be Django, whether it be, you know, we can't escape the fact that the N-word isn't said in this type of dynamic. Like you can't escape that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a 1852 slavery movie. Like you can't escape the fact that this hasn't happened.
Right.
But overall, I think the only time that Reservoir Dogs actually has ever the only movie that he had where the N-word was cringeworthy, and it's actually a different scene. Now that scene with Cam, I agree with that 100% because it was just kind of random. But I kind of looked at it as four white boys in a car talking how they talk. So that's how I kind of looked at it. Like, dude, like,
exactly.
I wouldn't. You can't tell me four white boys couldn't come up with this conversation. So, lo and behold, you have that. So, I think for me, the only cringeworthy way that I've ever heard him kind of put the N-word in a scene was when Mr. Blonde walks in. He's not really talking. Mr. White confronts him, and Mr. Orange, well, Mr. Pink, are going between to break up whatever the fight or the argument that they had. He said that you going at each other like a bunch of niggas. Like you always say, they're going to kill each other. And I was just like, shoot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a cringe-worthy phrase, you know, to hear that. So I think that was the only one for me where I was just like, yeah, that was kind of unnecessary. But you can still see how that still can be a conversation about how people think of us as black, you know, as black people.
That's how I defend Tarantino in that, as you know, people watch his movies, and because it's such a provoking word, and so people feel like if you're going to use that in a movie, there has to be this clearly defined purpose in which is universally known and understood to everybody. Like if it was a slave movie, okay, of course, but just as in slave movies, you know, white people didn't stop saying it. You know, when we took away the whip. You see what I'm saying? So I see it as, okay, one part of me is like, well, maybe what if he's satisfied, this is the way he satisfies his thirst to say the word by using it in artistic form. All right, yeah, you getting away with it if that's the case. But from a if I was to justify it, you know, I can totally see it from the standpoint of, yeah, this is a casual conversation between four white dudes. And I'm pretty sure it comes up. I'm pretty sure they say it. I've heard black dudes say cracker. You know what I mean? I can really believe that they said it there. Before that scene, when dude was running from the police, did anybody happen to catch how much that gas was on the screen? Like they had
No, I didn't know.
The gas was $1.19. I will leave it right there. It was $1.19 a gallon. Those were the days.
It's always funny to me because one of my favorite movies, well, my favorite movie of all time, is Die Hard. I love it. I've seen it 11 times. That's what he said. But once Bruce Willis is shooting off on the roof, they make the police call into Reginald Vale Johnson, which was a police officer at the time. You know, call Winslow and family about it. And he's at the gas station buying, like, Twinkies or whatever. So they pan up to see the building, the Nakatomi Tower, and the gas was like 80 cents per gallon. And I couldn't even believe it. I was like, it was 88 cents.
Jesus Christ.
1 gallon of gas was 88 cents.
I can't even remember when that happened.
Dude.
Wow.
It was like 1990.
Yo, there's a scene where Mr. Pink is trying to light a lighter, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if the lighter really wouldn't light. Y'all remember the scene I'm talking about? He's like really like going at it, trying to get the light, and I'm wondering like I wonder stuff like that. If it really didn't light, and Quentin Tarantino was like, we'll work around it, just leave it in there. Let me see. We got.
He's notorious for that, though. Like his big deal was in Django. That was real blood, apparently. Leonardo. I mean, not to skip ahead, but apparently Quentin Tarantino loves that whole keep rolling thing.
Yeah, you get something
because Leonardo allegedly cut his hand when he broke that glass.
Yes, that's what I hear also. That
yeah,
and I think that's what actually made the scene though, because if you just look at Kerry Washington's face, you know, like she didn't know that was gonna go on. She didn't know that he was gonna rub his blood on her face, and he just kept running. And I think that's probably one. Well, we'll get to that, I guess. Hopefully.
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about the climax. We'll bring up the climax in a little bit. I want to get to before we move to Inglorious Basterds. Any other thoughts, comments about Reservoir Dogs?
I don't know. I think a lot of the things for me is I do like the fact that Mr. Orange died. That's great for me. I love that. You know what I mean? So. I don't like the fact that Mr. White died, because I'm pretty sure that happened. One of the things that I'm kind of in love and like not so in love with Quentin Tarantino is the ambiguous ending that he has, so you really don't know. You don't know if Mr. Pink leaves. You don't know if Mr. Pink lives or he dies or he gets away or he has a statue of diamonds and he does whatever he does, and you don't know that. So I think that's for me.
He could have left. Mr. White could have left and would have been on his way. That's the type of shit that pisses me off more than the ambiguous ending. When you could have been out, but you're right. I'm pretty sure he died. Cam, any other thoughts on Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah, let me tell you, I have a couple of those.
Okay.
The first one I have is I felt that Mr. Orange's backstory was completely unnecessary. I felt like if any poll from the movie, that was the one that fell flat with me. To talk about pacing, I know we were going back and doing flashbacks, but the one flashback I thought was unnecessary was to talk about the cop story, because no one cared. Like, it didn't matter if you talked about, like, this is why he did it, and this kid is like a real kid. At that point, it didn't matter. It became a point of, this dude was lying. Now what happens to him? Like, I felt like that kind of was the weak point in it. So I wanted to throw that out there. And then secondly, for me, the dialogue-laden, the entire movie was dialogue-laden, but this led into me going back after rewatching that. And if you don't listen to Quentin Tarantino's dialogue, you will miss entire plot points. And I appreciated that in Reservoir Dogs, because if you go back and listen, there are things that you pick up on that you wouldn't have picked up on if you're missing something. So I appreciate the lack of action, not seeing the heist. I like being told the heist. It's like being read a story at night. So I didn't see the heist, but here, tell me what happened, and I'm putting it together in my head.
It would have been kind of cool to see the heist, though.
But still, I want to see the heist in a heist movie.
All right, so you have to understand with me, like, heist movies are like my favorite type of movies, especially when they're like super cool and super. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. All right, so let's talk about Inglorious Basterds. This was my first time watching Inglorious Basterds. I had not seen it, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, another Quentin Tarantino movie. Now, Cam, did you see any of it? Did you do any of the homework?
Yeah. Everybody got jokes. I'm sitting in the back in the day bar. Okay. But
you don't know how it ended, right?
I had to drive through like traffic to get here. I'm sorry?
You don't know how the movie ended, though.
No, I don't. And like, I seen Inglorious Basterds a while ago, and so full disclosure, it is my least favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. I tried to watch it repeatedly. And I can't get through that one. And especially after seeing Django, it is not my favorite Retribution story at all.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know that we can avoid spoilers because you hadn't seen the ending. So
No, I know what happens. I just haven't rewatched it since I decided I didn't like it.
Well, hopefully this makes you kind of want to watch it. Who was your favorite character in the movie?
Okay, so my favorite character is Brad Pitt, and I'm not sure how I felt about saying that because I feel like this is not like a sexual thing. I don't really just dig Brad Pitt in most movies. Side note, I hated Brad Pitt in 12 Years a Slave. Unrelated, but I hated him in that one. I did love him in this one. Yeah, I did love him in this one. And part of his character is why I didn't play into this movie as much as I like Retribution stories. And Quentin Tarantino loves to play that alternate universe, and we saw that later with Django, and I didn't know that was coming up after Inglorious Basterds. But the problem I had was it was so contrived. It was so contrived and so completely parallel universe that I had trouble buying into it, and it felt like it was propaganda. Please don't hate me.
Propaganda is kind of strong, though. Propaganda on whose part?
No, because... Well, here's the thing. Like, oh, gosh, this is going to come off. Oh, goodness. Okay, so... Okay. I really felt like he was pushing the Retribution story instead of letting it live. If that makes sense. I really felt like he was trying through that movie to try to make an alternate reality for the Holocaust that didn't exist. And I don't think that's how it's supposed to go. I think that we need to recognize what happened and kind of accept that instead of making a movie that is so distracted from reality. I have a hard time rooting for them because I know in the end this is not how it went. Does that make sense? Like Django's story, I mean, you're not going to blow up a plantation house. That probably wouldn't have happened. But there's a little bit more reality to a rogue slave doing that.
What I would have liked, and again, my first time watching it, so I didn't, I after the movie, I was like, okay, well, I know this is not exactly how Hitler died because I don't remember us talking about that in school. So I went and checked my sanity real quick. But what I was thinking throughout the movie is, I thought it would have been really cool to me, which would have kind of saved it. Because I agree with what you're saying, Ham. What kind of would have saved it from what it came out to be was, if either Hitler didn't go to the theater, or he left the theater, or there was a sort of an ambiguous ending to the Hitler character. I was super shocked when they opened them doors and put holes in them. I was like, oh shit, okay, all right, well, that's it. So, Greg, what was your favorite character?
It's probably unconventional, but the character that Michael Fassbender played, I think his name was Lieutenant Hickok or something like that. So, for me, I think
yes, that was my second favorite one. Yeah,
yes.
He
so
fucked
I think
up.
My favorite is the fact that he was English. Yeah, he was English, and he when you come out to a point of no return, and that was kind of what it was when he put up the three. You put up the three the three fingers, and it's not recognized as German, and it comes to a head, and he's just like, you know what? He says there's a good place in hell for people who waste good scotch. And I was just like, dude, that's me. Like, if I had to turn to a point, if I had to turn to a point where it was the end, and more than likely he said it, he's like, we're not walking out this bar alone. We're not walking out this bar together. It's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So you do that, you take a drink, and you start speaking in your native tongue, your native language, and, you go out guns blazing, apparently. But, yeah, I think that's, for me, you witness, like in life, you just witness a point where you can't fake it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't fake it anymore. You just got to take the end result. out of one other scenario yet.
I thought that was super dope. How it got to that point, and it was just sort of like, yeah, well, fuck it. And he went and poured out his cigarette, lit him a cigarette, said the line about the scotch, drunk the scotch. He was like, what did he say? He said, seeing as I'm probably gonna be headed that way. Then he went and drunk the rest of the scotch, and he was like, had nothing to do with what was happening. He was like, that was damn good scotch.
There you go.
Yeah, but I liked the. Well, I'm gonna wait because I'm gonna wait till I get to that because I don't want to get ahead of that. But my favorite character was Chris.
Well, you know what? One thing that I guess I can identify with slavery, obviously, for a variety of reasons. This is a culture I grew up in and history I grew up in, and I can identify with, and I'm okay with making light of as necessary. I had a hard time making light of that situation. An incredibly tough time. When you're growing up in American public school, you hear how bad the Holocaust is. You see Anne Frank. You read Anne Frank. You watch these movies about this kind of stuff. You read about Adolf Hitler. You've probably seen these independent films that's come out that have you've seen Hitler's death, etc. It was tough for me to let go of. I don't know. I feel like I can't laugh at other cultures. I don't feel like I have the point of view, the point of reference to do it. So when you have a movie about slaves that we can laugh about, stuff that happened on plantation, I just don't feel like it's fair for me to do that. So I guess part of my criticism with that is it never took me to a place where it's okay for me to laugh. It's okay for me to, root for whoever. It's okay for me to identify.
Did you feel like you would have been? Do you feel like you would have been poking fun, or do you feel like Quentin Tarantino was poking fun at the Holocaust, or the Germans, or whomever?
No, I didn't feel any of that at all. I just felt like it didn't resonate with me as much as his other movies. Quentin Tarantino has a really good, he has an ability to put you in a position to root for whoever's going to be the protagonist or the antagonist. And I didn't feel having the experience I have with an American public education system. And on top of that, I used to live in Germany. So I feel like it's kind of a sensitive spot for me. I just didn't feel like he did enough to take me into the realm of cinema and to root for this in a fictional setting and for it to feel... And I'm not saying that it intentionally did that. I just didn't feel like this is the one movie I didn't feel Quentin Tarantino made me discard the other barriers I had and get into the movies. I kind of held on to that whole, but wait a second, it was a Holocaust, dude. Like, why are we laughing about this? Like Anne Frank's in the attic somewhere. Like, I felt kind of weird about it.
Gotcha. My favorite character in the movie was Christoph Waltz. I really enjoyed his character, mostly because he always seemed to be one step ahead. And it was like weird. It was a weird paradox for me because I didn't want him to succeed. For instance, there was a scene where I can't remember what her Emmanuel, when she got away, he didn't shoot her, and he met up with her again when dude quote unquote invited her to the dinner, and he offered her when they were about to eat. And he got the strudel with the cream. He had him a drink, and he offered her milk. Like little shit like that to get inside people's head because the whole premise behind his character is he's a Jew killer. He was a Jew hunter. He would hunt down Jews, and she was in the house of a milk farmer. And so he offered her milk to sort of say, yeah, look, nobody else in this room know who you are. I know who you are, type thing. And then the same sort of thing he did with, I'm about to butcher her name, the chick Van Hammersmark or something like that. Yeah. When he told her, when he literally laughed at her when she told him she hurt her leg, and he took her to the back room and told her to put his foot on her, and he said, reach in the bag and hand me, whatever's in there, and he handed her shoe from the shootout with Michael Fassbender and had her put it on. Now this is where it gets sort of, for me, I'm pretty good with most kill scenes. It's very tough for me to watch strangle scenes. But anyways, he was my favorite character because he was super witty and like he usually is in movies, and he was the enemy that literally was always one step ahead until that very last scene. What was your favorite dialogue exchange between what two characters? I'll start with you, Cam.
You did this on purpose.
Actually, I didn't. I was trying to defer to
Greg. I would like to defer to Greg.
So
I'm going to defer to Greg.
How far into the movie did you get?
I have literally seen in the entirety of Inglorious Basterds. Okay, this is going to be super unpopular because as much as I love Quentin Tarantino. Okay, so you know Thor 2, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't watch Thor 2 without falling completely asleep, and that's how I feel about Inglorious Basterds. And I love the man, and I need to give it more time, but I can't deal with that movie. It's like the only one that will fit into my whole mold, so I will defer. I do have something I want to bring up at the end about the fan theories and alternate universes, but...
So wait, you don't remember any two people talking? Like you can't just pick out a random two people?
Not enough to give a good... Yeah, this is dirty. You know what? Let me keep drinking in the bar.
I was just messing with you. Okay, Greg. Who is your favorite dialogue?
Okay, so I would say for me, it would be Christoph Waltz's character Hans Landa, and then the initial scene, which pretty much sets the movie for me. So with Pierre Lapetit was the French guy that was hiding Shoshana and her family under the boards. And I think for me is the conversation that they're having is a comparison with Jews and rats. And it's not necessarily how they're comparing it. It's just the fact that he actually convinced him that it didn't matter if you didn't like them, and it didn't matter if you don't even know the reason why. You just know it's repulsive to you. And it's bad because a lot of people out how we live, like how all of us live, is how we speak about racism. And he made them believe it. A French man that was hiding Jews, he made them believe that, okay, a Jew can be somewhat like a rat, and I don't know the reason why, or a German doesn't know the reason why, that I wouldn't welcome this person in my home. And for me, that scene, I mean, it resonates because I think for us, as Black people, we have that. We have that a lot of the times, whether it be at work or school or home or whatever. But, I think it's real weird how convincing somebody can be depending on what you're doing in life.
That's deep because it's like this dude went through, he risked basically not only his, but his family's life to hide these Jews. And within the matter of a conversation, and of course, I mean, I think at that point he made his decision. He's just Lapetit probably just hoped he didn't ask, but he made him Hans brought him over to his side to understand it from his point of view, to understand why I'm here to kill these Jews. You're not a bad person, and your family will be cool and be taken care of, but I got a job to do. And he sort of made him realize, right? And he made him give him up, and I was like, wow. And that's the scene. That's what I knew. This dude was. That's what I knew. This dude is probably gonna be my favorite character. If he do more shit like this. You know what I mean? Like, and again was still one step ahead of him, because if you notice, he went in and out between. Was he speaking? He was speaking French to him. They were speaking French, right? They were speaking French,
right?
They were speaking French, and then he went to English, knowing that the Jews were there, and knowing they didn't speak English. And he was like, tell me where they are. He pointed to where they are over the floor, and he was like, because I hadn't heard them move or anything, I take it they don't speak English. I mean, that it was sad what happened to the Jews, but that scene there was like, wow, this dude here is a force. And you just saw you saw that over and over throughout the movie with him, which is again why he was I like Christoph Waltz anyway, but why he in that movie, why he was my favorite character in the movie. Cam, do you have a favorite scene overall other than the opening credits?
Actually, it's actually the whole thing you guys discussed. It's actually, no, literally, it's the whole thing you guys discussed. And I'm so mad about that because I wanted to talk about him switching to English and the conspiratorial nature of it. I think I will for a second, but I always wonder how committed these people are. When you think about, hiding Jews, and when you think about the Underground Railroad, how committed are you? And when you switch to English, this is when you have a chance to prove just how committed you are. And I have a sense of dread in that moment because I feel like it's the same, and I have to parallel these between an Underground Railroad and Jews in a situation because it's the best way I understand it. I feel like it cheapens it a little bit, but it's the best way I understand it. You really know how people feel about and how committed they are to a movement when you're speaking above them, if that makes sense. When they're the audience, but they're no longer in the room. Like that kind of, and that sense of dread when they switched to English and he gave him the opportunity. Like, how do you really feel? And I don't know, that the sense of dread in my stomach is the same feeling I get when I think about, you believe in these people who are getting you to North, and then finally at the end, their self-interest still overrides how much they believe in the cause. That's an ugly feeling. And I know that even though they didn't speak English, of course, that was it. They knew it.
You think they knew at that point? That's That's a great testament to how strong self-interest is. Like the imagery you just painted, right? So Underground Railroad, they get you all the way to the north, to the front door of the north. You looking at the north, the wind blow, the north dust is in your face, right? But they still got that self-interest, and everything could change just like that. Just like that. It'll take one Christoph Waltz dude to walk in and just like verbally change everything. And you know what's crazy? All the work you did, all the times you risked your life, doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean nothing at all. Because now, for your underlying self-interest, I got to soothe that. So that's powerful. I never even thought about it like that with that scene. Let me see.
I had something relevant. Yay!
There you go. So the next one, name a scene that resonates with modern times. I'm probably going to. Well, no, wait. No, before I get to that one, let me talk about what my favorite scene was. That's that scene there with La Petite is what made me fall in love with Christoph Waltz character. My favorite scene was what we just talked about earlier, when they were all in the little bunker and they were all playing the games, and she was setting them up. She was going to get them the tuxedo. They were going to go to the cinema, and she was going to kill them. But that I enjoy that verbal cat and mouse between two characters. First, it started with Michael Fassbender's character and the Hillcrow, whatever his name was, Hillcrow, and the officer, and then it continued on with the other guy who he put the gun in, he shot, he had the gun at his nuts, and how again this is a character how I believe he had a plan from the jump. on how he was going to break this British spy. You know, he sat around, played a game with them, you know, got their guard dropped. So he thought he was very charming. He won the game, which I thought was super cool, the way he did it. And, you know, and all else was going cool. And, you know, he just when he might have been able to think, well, this guy's good, you know, maybe who he thinks he is, or at least I don't have enough evidence to prove otherwise. He asked him how many snaps did he want, and he held up 3 fingers, you know, the index, the middle, and the ring, as opposed to the German thumb, index, and the middle. And that, for me, I was on the edge of my seat because it was like that last second, it was like, I got him. So now I'm wondering what he's going to do. Is he going to throw all his cards in? Which essentially he did, because like, I'm tired of this bullshit. And he just put the gun at him. And then after that, after they all shot each other, then comes in poor Wilhelm. I mean, he had a kid and everything. I thought he was gonna get away. But Brad Pitt's character, Aldo, you know, he with his super Southern accent was killing me throughout the movie. And, you know, he was like, you know, I'm gonna make a deal with you. And he was like, well, Wilhelm was like, how am I going to trust you? And at this point, Brad Pitt's character was frustrated. He was like, so, son, what other choice do you got? You know what I mean? And the funny part in that scene too was he came down the stairs and he was like, basically, bro, what do you do? Why do you still have a machine gun? What happened? So that was my my favorite scene in the movie. Any thoughts on that?
And I can understand that completely. I think the funniest thing about that scene that a lot of people don't know is the guy that was playing the officer that found out Michael Fassbender wasn't actually German at all. Like, I think people don't understand that because he said to him, hey, if we're just going to go out, let's just go out. And he changed his voice. He wasn't even German anymore. He figured it out.
Right.
But he wasn't German.
Right.
He didn't have it. That was the thing. Like, he wasn't from anywhere. Like, he was just, yo, like, I know you're not who you are, and now you know I'm not who I am. So, what are we gonna do now? Like, what tide is this turning now?
Right, man. I didn't want him to die in that scene, man. I didn't want him to die in that scene. Cam, if you ever decide to watch the movie, that's a really good scene. When they, matter of fact, I would say go directly to that scene and watch it.
I feel like I'm dogging it, and that's not it. I guess when I say least favorite, it's not like, oh, I can't watch that movie. It's just, I don't know. I didn't expect what I got from it.
No, I got you. I can take that you dog. I didn't take it like that.
Yeah, like I feel like I've been like going off on the movie, but like one thing, you were hitting on the modern times thing, and it really hit home for me, the propaganda machine. And I mean, most of the movies kind of like a fantasy world anyway. But if you look at like historically, Hitler was really good at that. And to bring it back to what he was trying to suppress, you know, in the movie in the fantasy world was, you know, actually happening in the historical context. And if you bring that forward to even a time now where we have a lot more access to media, how that theme hasn't changed since something as big as we're going to keep down, you know, this super bat-wielding person, to what we have now. When I do the historical context and look at modern times, that's what I picked out the most. It's just a propaganda machine, especially when it comes to Hitler, because I think before anyone else, he was really good at focusing that.
I agree. Let's talk about the climaxes of the two movies. So let's take it back to Reservoir Dogs. What did you guys think? And I'll start with you, Greg. What did you think about the climax?
Okay.
We sort of touched on it a little bit, but what did you think about the climax of Reservoir Dogs?
Well, like I say, for me, the climax is I never felt I've seen a lot of movies out of my life, and I never felt like, God, I want this guy to die so bad. I think I never felt like that before, but I felt like that with Mr. Orange. Like, I felt like that. Like if this would happen to me, like that's the only thing I place myself in a way of, like, if this would happen to me, how would I feel about somebody deceiving me so badly? Somebody that I felt like, you know what, I can go to jail, or I can go to prison, or federal prison, or however it may be, but I gave you something, and I trusted you with that thing, and you are not who you say you are. For me, that was the biggest thing that I could ever look at, and the climax for me with that movie. Dude, like, I don't know how you not do it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's for me. Like, I don't know what it would take, because clearly the police shot him, and that's how it works. But you shoot somebody beforehand. But I don't know what it would take for me not to kill you at that point.
Gotcha. Okay, Cam.
I didn't even feel like that was the climax to me. Like, I felt like once you told me he was the officer, it was kind of like a downhill slope to a resolution. That was the climax for me. At least the first time watching it. Maybe I think in future viewings it wasn't the case. But it was like a big balloon. It was over for me. That was it. I knew he wasn't going to survive that. I could not see a circumstance in which, Mr. Orange could survive that. I felt like he was going to meet his demise. It was only a matter of time. Considering the fact that I felt like he was going to meet his demise the entire movie, like we were just waiting for this guy to die. Once he revealed he was a cop, I didn't think it was going to go. He was gone anyway. And the question was, what was going to happen in the fallout of that? I guess everybody shooting each other, to me, kind of got a little awkward, because knowing who he was, you were kind of waiting for it to play out, I guess, how the reveal happened. I'm like Greg, I don't feel like I have to kill anybody. My self-preservation, I know, like, you really jacked up, I personally feel like I should let you live so that you can feel how much you jacked up. I don't know. Or die a slow death, or hold him hostage for a little bit so he can bleed out. I don't know. Like, I don't want to just shoot you. Like,
no, and I understand that completely. For me, a little bit, I think it works. Like, all of these, they made us care about bad guys. All of these are bad people. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a point where we're looking at all angels and we got to kind of figure this whole thing out. It's not that at all. We're looking at we're looking at 6 or 7, like, really bad people, not knowing what they've done in the past. You're especially see it robbery, and I get that. Like, we're looking at somebody that we would not look at and say, like, yo, like, why didn't he live? Like, why didn't he? Like, why didn't he get away? It's the weirdest dynamic, though. Like, because we should be glad that all of them died, but we're not.
Can I speak to Greg's point?
Yeah.
Can I speak to Greg's point?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't get to this earlier, and you could tell how much I love Reservoir Dogs. But, like, all of the violence they committed, and, like, killing a black girl during the robbery and shooting cops, it was all, like, throwaway. And it goes with what Greg was saying. These are bad guys. And we hear them doing bad deeds, but we don't even really think about it until you see them actually murder people towards the end. And there's, like, a hot second where you kind of pivot away from, hey, these are, like, the protagonists of the story, to wait, they were just, like, shooting strangers and killing other cops. Like, there was a hot moment where I realized they were criminals. I didn't think about it until at the end of the heist, where they showed the strangers being killed.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree.
But you know what I'm saying? All of their violence was off screen. Everything they did was off screen. He was like, how many did you kill? I killed a couple cops, whatever, but they're cops. What about that black girl? Oh, she shouldn't open her mouth. But it was all, like, tossed away. And then when you saw it, you were like, oh, wait a second, guys. Like, it's not cool to just, like, run on the street, kill people.
Right. Oh.
It is an interesting dynamic, to say the least.
Okay. Now, so we'll talk about the ending to Inglorious Basterds, which Cam didn't see. So I'm gonna create an opening somewhere so that she can still be a part of it.
But I did research. I have an amazing fan theory. So when you get to that part, I want to hop in.
Okay, all right. So that'll be your contribution to it. Okay, Greg. So about I didn't even get my piece on the end of Reservoir Dog. I'll just say this.
Please.
I didn't. I'm not like Cam. I'm not real big on. Two types of endings I'm not big on, and this movie gave me both at the same time. I'm not big on endings where everybody die. I'm not big on tragedies like that. And I'm not big on ambiguous endings. Show me that Mr. White got shot as he killed Mr. Orange or something like that. I want to see all of that. That's what I want to see. So that's how I feel about it. But Greg, tell me about what your thoughts are on the ending to Inglorious Basterds.
Okay, perfect. So clearly, it's not truth to reality. Like clearly, Hitler didn't die like that. But
right.
What I do like about it is that he died. He died in the first place. Like I was telling Cam, like out of a couple minutes ago, is that it took him 10 years. He didn't really know. Like Quentin Tarantino didn't really know the ending of Inglorious. Right? It took him 10 years to write the movie. He wrote it way before Pulp Fiction, actually, I think. And him dying, he just had to figure out a way that he can die and people can kind of understand it. Now, do I agree with it? No, because he could have died any kind of fucking way. I would have felt the same way, and it would have been the same thing. But like Hitler dying is fine. I think the fact that Aldo Rain, Brad Pitt's character, is willing to be chewed out by, well, he says, quote unquote, chewed out by his superior officer, which is actually Harvey Keitel speaking over the speaker to Christoph Waltz when he was negotiating his deal. But yeah, he was willing to be chewed out just to hide, just to engrave that swastika on his face. And for me, I'm just like, that's anybody that wants to do whatever they do for work. Is I have a way that I do things, and I'm going to do that. Now, if I get that first write-up, I'm okay with that. This is like the second write-up, and I think I'll be okay with that. So if he didn't even understand, he shot the guy, and it was just what it was. He shot the guy, and he was just like, Christoph Waltz was like, I begged for this man, like I pleaded for this man's life, and he was like, well, we don't give a shit about you. We give a shit about you. So, I mean, the climax to that is just, you think that you get away with it, and you say like, oh, I have a plan, and I have this negotiated deal, and nothing's going to happen to me, and I have a family, and everything's on Nantucket Island, and I've killed more Frenchmen and more Jews than you can ever imagine. I'm going to live comfortably, and Brad Pitt made it so you can't live comfortably for the rest of your life. And what I didn't like is the fact that you didn't know if Marcel lived or died or not. That's what it is. So yeah. So for me, I'm kind of with you also. Like I thought that it was super dope that he was willing to get in trouble with his commanding officer just to feel this need. And it was sort of, I like when movies do this thing where they kind of, it's designed to bring things back full circle, where they'll introduce a concept or something in, one part of the movie, and that same thing is part of the climax or part of the ending to the movie. In this case, him engraving the swastika in dude's head. And I was like, well, okay, for my character, Christoph Waltz, it was super cool for me to see him, last, until seemingly that last second. Like for me, I was like, well, wait a minute. They really just gonna, this is the deal. This is gonna be the end of the movie. Okay, all right. So they cut a deal, cool. And then Brad Pitt shot the other dude. Like, pow. And then for the first time, you saw in Christoph Waltz's face, you saw fear. For the first time, you got to see him, at this point, he was not one step ahead.
And I can relate to that. I'm someone that prides himself on being, one step ahead of the competition or anything. And the one time when you might catch me, it's very. I'm scared to a degree because it's like, wow, if I'm able to get caught slipping, you could take my life. You see what I'm saying? So I could relate to that so much. So, but and like for a character like him, if he were to escape out of that situation, he would never be caught like that again. And that's how I feel. Like if you catch me one time, I'm super intrigued because I'm wondering how you were able to do that. I want to dissect it, one, so that I can fortify it and it never happens again. And two, there's a certain appreciation for someone to get one up on me. I can appreciate that you did this because that's not an easy thing to do. It's still gonna be your ass, but I can appreciate you trying to do it. You know what I mean?
I can understand that.
All right, so Kev, so let's talk about the fan theories. What you have for this?
So I was reading a bunch of stuff, and the one that comes up to me was that the universe after Inglorious Basterds proceeded as if Hitler was assassinated in the way it happened in Inglorious Basterds. So all the future movies from that timeline are a reflection of American values when Hitler was defeated in that way at that time. And so there's a couple of things about how, like, Quentin Tarantino has made the point to say that some of his movies are movies and movies. So when we watch Kill Bill, we're actually watching some of the quote-unquote normal storyline people watching a hyper-violent film. Because there's a marked difference in his violence in a couple movies. Like, I think, at least I see that. I don't know. How some are slightly more gory than other ones. Mm-hmm. And so what they're saying is that what happened in the Inglorious Basterds is the normal timeline, is the abnormal timeline. And then the movies within a movie, like say for instance, From Dusk Till Dawn, things like that, are Americans who have now, after having Hitler done with in the way he was done with, are hyper violent and hyper nationalized. How do you feel about that? Like, we're going from the timeline of, at that point, that's how Hitler was murdered, and that's how it went from the future point. Every movie that fell into that timeline. Which they said was obviously an issue with Django, but we'll forget it.
That's actually, I not heard that one, but what it's going to make me do is now, and that's going to happen anyway because of what we're doing, but now I'm even more intrigued to go back and watch the movies because I'm going to look now for subtle nuances.
Well, the best example of that is Pulp Fiction, and like, because Pulp Fiction is obviously on the regular timeline, about how they said that because he was murdered in that situation, Americans became hyper into pop culture, and so that's why some of the side conversations in Pulp Fiction were strictly about pop culture because we were obsessed with it from that moment on. Like, it jarred the universe. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What was the beginning scene of Pulp Fiction? They had like with Burger King, and I think that's kind of like a waffle, like getting a waffle with cheese and like that. That was one of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So now going forward, now that we've introduced that, and if you're listening and you're watching along with us, send an email, drop on the timeline, tell us your thoughts on it. If you start seeing these subtle nuances, then we'll play them I'll read them on the show. We haven't chosen the next movie yet, and that's kind of cool because I wanted to do that on the show. I guess let me see. Who can we credit with this? Can we credit you with these two movies that we just watched? You chose these two movies.
I feel it's totally unfair because for half of the conversation, I was just drinking my martini. Like, I feel like I was participating and just drinking. So.
All right. So, do you want to choose the next movies? If you're not gonna credit yourself with choosing these movies, you want to choose these next two?
So 2 movies from Quentin Tarantino. Okay. In our conversation, we were trying to pair the two. I put, am I correct about this? I don't remember. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. I put Hateful Eight. What did I put Hateful Eight with? Remember, I paired them all. I said Django and I don't feel like it's Pulp Fiction. Oh my gosh, because Jackie Brown went along with something else. Pulp went with something. Oh, this is gonna break my heart. How about Hateful Eight and you guys pick something?
I really hope it's Hateful Eight.
I want to do Hateful Eight. Yeah, I want to do Hateful Eight. I think me and Greg totally love Hateful Eight.
Okay, so Hateful Eight, because that's what I hadn't seen. Okay, Hateful Eight, and what are we going to do?
Like I told you, it's on Apple TV. It's 99 cents. Watch it, please.
Okay.
I think it's 99 cents for about another week. So I own it, but I'm just saying, like, you can watch it for like a penny or whatever, $1.
All right. So
I think it was Django and Hateful Eight. I think in my mind it felt like if we were pairing them, it was Jackie and Pulp, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Rez and Inglorious, because I was like, whatever Inglorious fits into, it could have fit into like a Family Guy episode, whatever. And then Django and Hateful Eight, because there's a whole bunch of parallels with Hateful Eight to Django.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The fact that Tim Roth was supposed to be Christoph Waltz, but he couldn't do it, so that's definitely how that works. But I guess that'll be for the next episode.
All right, hopefully
if it is the next episode,
it's gonna be the next episode because I own the network. Even if this gets shit right, it's still gonna be another episode. All right, cool.
I'm gonna be in my house next time. I'll be in my home.
I thought you being at the gay bar. I thought you being at the gay bar sort of added a certain dynamic to it. So that's pretty cool.
There's some authenticity to it, right?
Yeah. All right, cool. Any last thoughts about anything before we close out this episode of the series, which we still do not have a name for?
Yeah, we don't have it just yet. Cam, I do want to ask you this question. I do. I know how you feel about that. I know how we feel both about Samuel L. Jackson, and you know how Quentin Tarantino says. He says that he will put Samuel L. Jackson in any film that he has. Whenever he keeps making film, he's gonna put him in there. He's gonna find a way. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people don't understand is that I guess the scene with the bear Jew that Quentin Tarantino Samuel L. Jackson actually narrates.
Yeah.
Hugo Stiglitz's backstory.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Quentin Tarantino as having strong black characters? So whether he has narrating, but if you really look at it, he does have strong black characters. Like, how do you look at that?
You know, in personal opinion, and I know some people think that it's like him pandering, and I do not feel that way. And I'm going to tell you why I felt that way. Samuel L. Jackson was the realest black person I had ever seen in Pulp Fiction. I think that's when I was almost introduced to him. Like, I wouldn't say it was the moment, but he was like the realest ever. And then when Quentin Tarantino looked Samuel L. Jackson in the eye and said, "Does this look like dead nigger story you?" If there was a moment when he should have hopped across something and went at Quentin Tarantino, that would have been it. And on the strength of Samuel L. Jackson alone, the fact that he trusts Tarantino to make him who is this nigga on a horse, and to make him the person who heard him and accepted the dead nigger storage. And I mean, Quentin Tarantino talked down to him. I mean, in a way that we don't like to demasculate our men. He was just like, no, wait, did I ask you that? I asked you was this, with the head swerving and all that kind of stuff like that. I feel like Quentin Tarantino is trusted by somebody who I trust. And to me, what he's doing with Samuel L. Jackson is authentic. Because if if there was one person who wouldn't be okay with it, it's Samuel L. Jackson. I feel like.
You're right. You are absolutely right.
I agree.
Yeah. If it's cool with Samuel L. Jackson, it's cool with us.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know. And like I say, I know we talked about it earlier. Having the N word into a lot of things that he does, and like I say again, it's only been a couple of times that I've ever cringed out of like hearing that N word. Even with I was not to kind of go off it, but at the same time, I was dating a girl that was really like, and I'm completely pro black. Like I love it, but then I was dating a girl that was really pro black, and she hated Django. She hated it, like hated it. Took it to the show, with her theater, hated it, and I didn't even understand the reason why, because out of the scenes of what it was, and I'm not telling people to accept it, because I have a younger sister who won't watch Quentin Tarantino movies at all. She won't even attempt to watch it. She says she's above it.
Wow.
Me, on the other hand, I can't look at it the same way. Yeah. She won't watch it at all. Married to a white man, but that's what it is.
Ooh, hey now. Hey, we know where I come from. Hold up, wait a minute.
Let's not
All right, cool.
You know what? That's a good segue into Hateful Eight. That's a good segue into Hateful Eight, because there was only one time where I felt well Samuel L. Jackson was kind of used by Quentin Tarantino, and I know you guys know the scene I'm talking about. But I felt like Samuel L. Jackson's scene in that was. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm saying segue into Hateful Eight.
Wait, are you stopping recording? Stop recording.
No, because I don't want her to spoil it for me, because I want to have this discussion when we watch it. Plus, I want to end this on a cliffhanger.
Well, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm trying to segue.
Okay.
Because I want to hear this, because I think we're thinking about the same thing.
Well, y'all text each other. Don't say it while I'm here. I don't spoil it. I haven't seen it
yet. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's linked to the next episode of the Tarantino whatever thing we're doing. I love Tarantino. I don't know what it is.
Dang, I thought you was.
We're talking about Samuel L. Jackson and Hateful Eight.
I thought you was gonna bless us with a title. Dang. Shit.
Did you see how confident I was, thinking that it was going to come to me, and I didn't, and I kind of backed. You would hear the hesitation, man. I kind of ruined it.
I was with you till you let it go. But we're gonna have something. I'm gonna have. It'll probably if y'all don't think of nothing, it'll come to me while I'm editing it. Well, okay. So follow the show on Twitter at OTAP Show. You can download episodes of the podcast on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find the show on Android in the Google Play Music app in the podcast section, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Like I said, wherever you listen to podcasts. Oh, and we're on YouTube now. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us there. If you enjoyed what you heard, if you have a movie suggestion, if you have other directors you want us to break down and critique, send me an email, Corey@OTAP Show, or you can follow the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag OTAP Show. For Greg at New Age Ike Turner on Twitter, and for Cam at what is it? Just Mute Me Now. That's it, right? At Just Mute Me Now.
Just Mute Me Now.
Just Mute Me Now.
I wouldn't follow me, but just you know.
I'm your host Corey, and until at The Real Shitty on Twitter. I'm your host Corey. And until we figure out what we're going to call this series, by the time you listen to this, it probably already has a title. But right now, we have no idea. But until next time, this has been another episode of the OTAP Show. Peace.